You know, I'll be honest. I said at the second reading of this bill that we had entered the twilight zone, and we are still firmly there. This is my first instance in 6 years where I've heard a minister of the Crown get up and propose a bill based on sentiment. Sentiment.
No facts.
I have never heard a single shred of evidence that protected infrastructure for vulnerable road users causes congestion. But the minister, we heard it. It was 25 painful minutes of subpar stand-up comedy. We heard it. We heard it again and again, but without a shred of evidence. And I just want to say as I start, Speaker, that's frightening. Because we are living in a time when if you say things again and again, and if they get shared in a viral capacity in digital platforms, you can propose them to be correct. But it's the government's responsibility, Speaker, to demonstrate to the opposition caucuses in this House and the people of Ontario that their decisions are made in the public interest and with evidence. And they have utterly failed on that front today. Okay. The bill should be called the Increasing Tragedies Missing the Moment Act. Why do I say that, Speaker? I'll say it for the record again. Because we know from collision statistics from the Ministry of Transportation that 49,106 people were critically injured or killed in 2023 by reckless driving. Very often in those statistics are vulnerable road users, cyclists, people with disabilities, seniors, road workers, first responders responding to the scene of an accident have been critically injured or in some cases killed. And the government in 6 years, sadly, has not proposed a single measure for vulnerable road users, not a single one. Impaired driving? Sure. Stunt driving? Sure. But not a single shred of evidence, despite the fact that the opposition has put it on the floor 6 times in the last 10 years, under this government and the previous Liberal government, to have vulnerable road users be safe in our communities. I want to read into the record the words of Jessica Mann, who lost her father, cyclist who was hit and killed in the west end of our city. And this is what her message is for the government, for the minister. Janessa says, this bill, it's not worth the money and time and lives it will cost. My 1-year-old daughter, she's not going to know her Opa, her grandfather. And I don't want that to be the case for any other 1-year-old because of unsafe cycling infrastructure, unsafe drivers because it hurts, and that's not fair. Now, members of this House may not know Janessa, but she's a person. She's a daughter. She lost her dad. And the evidence that we're starting to gather in Ottawa is that this is a dangerous area that could use further protection. But this government has said through this bill that the only way the City of Ottawa can do it is if they get the Minister of Transportation's permission first. Because Dad knows best. Speaker, I also want to acknowledge Jessica Speaker Michael Longfield in the House today. Jessica Speaker was critically injured in 2015, seriously injured at the site of an accident with a reckless driver who was fined a pittance of a few $100s for this, and nearly died from her injuries of blood clots afterwards. Michael Longfield, Vice President of Cycle Toronto, was also critically injured in an accident on a bike. So you may not know Janessa, you may not know Jessica, you may not know Michael, but I'll end on this note. Maybe you know me. I've been here for the last 6 years. And I regret to inform this House that I'm also someone who was involved in a reported incident of road violence very recently. I was on my way to go pick up our vehicle, which was being serviced. If people know my city in Ottawa, where Billingsbridge Shopping Mall is, the traffic is reduced to a narrow 2 lanes. The signage says cyclists and cars have to share the road. And when I was going southbound up Bank Street under the transitway, I could hear a whoosh behind me, and a driver knocked my left arm to the point where my handlebars turned like so, and I was vaulted over the handlebars. This gentleman did a hit and run, left. But thankfully, and it says a lot about Canadians, everybody around stopped. They got out of their vehicles, they dusted me off, they looked to see if I was okay. But if that car that was in behind that dangerous, reckless driver had been right on the bumper, I might not be here today. I might not be here today. So behind that 49,106 collision incidents, Speaker, are human beings. Jess, Michael, Janessa, me, and so many other people whose lives matter. My friend from St. Catherine's mom, critically hit as she crossed an intersection near an elementary school in St. Catherine's. Thrown how many feet?
50.
Thrown 50 feet from a driver who began from a standstill. Where are the penalties? Why isn't that a priority in this bill? And why are we proposing the removal of protected infrastructure that could save lives? Speaker, I know we're living in an age in politics where likes and shares and spin seems to matter more than substance. But I had the honor in this place, the honor of meeting the former Premier of this province, Bill Davis. And under those Conservative governments, hospitals were built, schools were built, swimming pools were built, libraries were built, community infrastructure was built. I have great respect for former Premier Davis. But what I struggle to understand is how this generation of Conservatives appears to have forgotten their responsibility to conduct evidence, to guide their decisions. And the people that will suffer, the people that will lose their lives, are regular Ontarians, and it doesn't need to happen. We still have time. Pull this bill, fix it right now.
Today.